If you want to slay and start trending with Gen Z, no cap, you have to listen closely to our next guest. His sneakers just moved up to number 4 among teens, surpassing Vans, according to a recent Piper Sandler survey. And their partnerships with athletes, as well as being a sponsor of this weekend's New York City Marathon, has boosted the company's profile. We've got Joe Preston, New Balance CEO, with us. Great to have you here in studio with us ahead of a very big weekend for you guys.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's always an exciting week leading up to the New York City Marathon. You have 50,000 runners that come from around the world, literally 150 countries that they come in, and all of them have been training for a big day, and it looks like the weather's going to cooperate.
We love to hear weather cooperation. Look, a big weekend in the midst of a big year for you guys. I mean, you think about some of the fanfare that you've got among the cohorts of millennials, Gen Z, Taylor Swift, Rich Paul, and then the performance athletic side too. It sounds like, and it looks like things are clicking on all cylinders. How do you capitalize on this moment and move the business forward from here?
Yeah, our business is really strong. So it's been that way for 3 consecutive years, and we just had our best back to school ever. All of our metrics are really strong. It's happening here in the US. We're about 1/3 of our businesses in North America, and the other 2/3 are around the globe, and every region is up over 20% versus the previous year.
What do you see as the big drivers, though? I mean, in some ways, when you think about where New Balance is, he's talked about the collaborations that you've had, but you know the athlete collaborations. You've also had collaborations with some big brands, too.
Yeah, well, it's never just one thing, but the collaborations that we have done and continue to do, we're very selective about who we work with, but those have been a good accelerator for the brand. You know, the product that our teams are producing, the fit, the finish, the feel of all of them, it's really, you know, when people come into the brand and experience that, they usually come back.
What's the next leg of innovation look like for New Balance?
Well, you know, we have our teams that are constantly focusing on trying to make product, whether it's the midsole, more responsive, more cushioning, and all of that. And, you know, we just introduced the 1080, which I'm wearing today, which is the official shoe of the New York City Marathon a couple of weeks ago, and it's been our strongest introduction of a running shoe in many years, so we're really excited about it.
You've got a good pulse on the consumer as well, at least where you compete in the market. I'm curious what you have seen in terms of where the spending is. You know, do you find that consumers are still willing to shell out sort of at a higher price point? Do you see a little pullback? No, we're talking specifically shoes, but I'm just curious what your vantage point looks like.
Well, for our brand, we have been gaining shares. So our business has been really strong. Overall, the footwear market for athletic footwear has been struggling here a little bit. It's been a difficult year for retailers in general. But you know, you're seeing young people that the expression that they want to have is usually a phone and what they're wearing, and footwear and apparel is a big part of that.
When you think about that difficult environment for retail on the whole this year, there's been a lot of kind of question mark about at what level has inventory moved through and into people's hands, on their feet, on their home, and at full price sales. How are you having to go about that pricing mechanism strategy at New Balance?
The entire industry dealt with sourcing challenges with the shutdown of overseas production, specifically in Vietnam, and that really impacted inventories. But now I would say coming into holiday, inventories are generally back to where they were before. I mean, some brands may have an issue just because some of the product isn't selling, but the sourcing challenges are behind us.
Yeah, sourcing challenges behind you, but to Brad's specific point on pricing, how are you seeing things shake down going into what is typically one of the busiest holiday shopping seasons? We've heard some retailers talk about additional discounting that may be needed because consumers are pulling back on discretionary spending. What's your expectation?
I think each retailer is going to deal with it on their own, on how much they feel they need to discount. For us, you know, pricing power is really relative to brand strength. So right now we're enjoying a really strong brand, so our pricing power is as strong as it's ever been.
What's the hotspot outside of the US for New Balance right now?
Europe is really strong. It's up over 30% this year, but all throughout Asia, every major market that we're doing business with
is there a specific 20%. Trend or any type of activity that's driving that from what you're seeing in the sales of in those markets too?
I think during COVID really allowed us to become more of a global company. So the top sellers that we see here in the US are the top sellers throughout the world.
You talk about sourcing and how you've sort of, kind of had to think about that over the course of the last several years, especially during the pandemic. Has that shifted where you think about manufacturing, when you think about sourcing? Is the company really moving towards more diversification, as we've seen with others?
Well, New Balance is the only athletic footwear manufacturer to have manufacturing here in the U.S. We have 5 factories here in the U.S., 3 in Maine and 2 in Massachusetts. We've also just finished building a manufacturing innovation center, which is 1 mile from our headquarters, which is going to allow us to continue to develop capabilities that allow us to grow our domestic production.
When you think about that manufacturing right now, we were just poring over the numbers earlier this morning, looking through the employment situation, and manufacturing, one of those areas that's been hit because of the strength of the employee right now in negotiations in the manufacturing sector. And it was autos in this case, but to what extent are you monitoring where there is the ability to make sure that the cost of living expenses that your employees face, that they're offset by making sure that they have not only a good work experience, but also a good compensation experience too?
Yeah, and there's many aspects to it. There's health,
right,
benefits, and those type of things. You know, we've been in Maine for more than 40 years, and in the Merrimack Valley in Massachusetts for more than 40 years. So we have a really stable employment base there, and our HR teams are constantly looking at making sure that the wages are competitive and it's livable.
Have you seen them push higher? I mean, part of this is about the discussion with the employee and the expectations pushing higher as a result of where the labor market is right now.
I think everybody has experienced labor wages increasing over the past 3 years, regardless of the sector. So yes, we've experienced that.
We saw some amazing splits coming out of the Chicago Marathon just weeks ago. And so we have no doubt that there's going to be some remarkable display of athletic performance out here in New York City. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time here with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.